Duggan, he's just going to hoist it down the sideline one-on-one, and it's caught! Touchdown, there's a flag thrown at the line of scrimmage. Does Savion Williams have an icing on the cake touchdown?
Welcome to the Big 1-2 on 365 Sports.
Howard throws it down the field. On target, Cade Warner. 38-yard score.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Big 1-2. Paul Catalina and Jacob Wilson. Hopefully soon to be joined by Roy Ogletree. Got tied up. What a crazy week, Jacob, in the Big 12. I don't know if it was that crazy. I mean, there was one really crazy game that you and I spent a post-game talking about, but this is about the whole conference. But that is the one that is the most important at this point, and that is TCU's last-second 29-28 walk-off win over Baylor.
Yeah, I think crazy has kind of been the catalyst for the Big 12 all year. We keep saying it week after week after week, but yet again, we're actually being sincere when we say what a crazy week.
But it was. Look, Oklahoma, it was 28-13. So if you just looked at the final score, you wouldn't say throttled Oklahoma State in Bedlam.
No,
but the first quarter was a throttling. I mean, it was 28-0 after the first quarter. Oklahoma then proceeded not to score, but Oklahoma State could never really get back in it. The best game Oklahoma's probably played all year on both sides of the ball.
Oh, yeah.
Even though not at the same time. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it seemed a little clear to me that Spencer Sanders, while he's on the field, he's not Spencer Sanders right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a healthy Spencer Sanders would have been able to come back in that game. But at the same time, like, that was all Oklahoma. Like, the final score does not indicate how dominant that whole game was for them.
They impressively chipped away at the end and had it to where, again, they would have had to score on 100% of their possessions. But, they kept it reasonable. So credit the defense of Oklahoma State for holding on in Bedlam. But that was a crazy thing that happened. Texas Tech, Iowa State plays another game in which they totally Iowa Stated it. And if you hold Texas Tech to 14 points, if you hold that offense to 14,
you should beat them.
You should win, but not when you have a ridiculously abysmal offense that the Cyclones have. Texas blew out Kansas, which I did not see coming. I thought that would be a better game, but I think that was some catharsis for the Longhorns there.
That was Bijan Robinson saying, "Oh, I know that there was Heisman talk about me earlier this year, but just mention me after this week. Just please mention me after this week," because he dominated. Like, Quentin Ewers was good, not great, but they didn't need him. He could have been bad. All they needed was Bijan Robinson in that game.
Well, here's the thing, and they may have just realized this. It's pretty much all they need in most games. Okay, I get it. You have a bunch of skill players that you like, Sark. And I do really like Steve Sarkisian. We interviewed him a couple years ago at the Big 12 Media Day event, which doesn't really have that name, but that's what I'm calling it right now. But at the Big 12 Media Days. And I was mad because I liked him so much. And it's easier to, deal with a team leaving the conference that you cover if the head coach is Tom Herman and he's abrasive, as opposed to a guy you're like, man, I'm legitimately rooting for this dude.
Yeah.
I just want him to have all the personal success he can have. But Sark, I think, finally figured out, and this is the thing, Tom Herman, one of the big reasons he's not at Texas anymore is he forgot about running backs completely.
Yeah.
Poor Sam Ehlinger is going to have, his elbow is probably going to click when he's 35 because of all the runs he had to make in college, because Tom Herman forgot he had running backs, including in his last year, Bijan Robinson.
And so Sark has been better about that, but at the same time, there have been games where the Longhorns have played where it's like, hey, you've got two guys, Bijan being the lead guy, that can win you a game. You don't have to put everything on your freshman quarterback, as good as he might be.
Yeah. And so they rode Bijan to victory. Kansas State pushes West Virginia inevitably closer to the Neil Brown finish line, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one ho-hum game.
Yeah.
Of the week.
And then a game that we will, and I'll get back into all these other ones. I just want to kind of do a quick little wraparound, and we might kind of spread this out. But TCU showed why they should be in the CFP. Now, look, I know they've got to win the next two. Although, look, there's a good chance that one of the conference champions is going to have a loss anyway, right?
Right.
So, should they lose? Well, they're not going to lose to Iowa State. They only have to score 11 points to do that. But, if they don't win the conference title, then that takes them out of it. But there's a potentially interesting scenario I talked about just at the end of our show a few minutes ago with Clemson and USC coming up, where, if you're looking for that fourth team and it's not a Big Ten team, and it's certainly not going to be an SEC team now since they all have 2 losses other than Georgia.
Although I am still kind of waiting for that. Alabama, they have a reason to be in this. And I if that day does come, I really am going to be on bated breath. Just, how are they going to justify it?
Yeah.
That's just the skeptic in me, because they always find a way to get in when they shouldn't be.
But they're not even playing in the conference title game, so I think that's null and void.
Like I said, watch them explain it, Paul.
Yeah, watch them explain it away. Here's why they're not being in the conference title game is better than USC being in theirs. And that explaining out another blue blood, too. So that would be interesting. But TCU showed what it is. I am very impressed with Sonny Dykes and he is exactly what this team needed. Because really with Gary Patterson, what you were wondering is, why is a team that seems to have some talent and has a guy who we know is an accomplished and skilled coach constantly hitting this wall? And then, of course, at the end of last year, it was just they were so cooked it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's because they were too tense. And everything they do makes it much, much simpler now. It's easy.
It's easier to run on a football field when your backside isn't puckered up this tight. And so I agree. That being said, do you remember Sonny Dykes? He got fired up there at one point during the game when he was trying to argue an offensive pass interference, which I think the viewers and the announcers kind of agreed that, yeah, he's probably just, a little bit in the moment. But at the same time, it was kind of out of character for him to get that fired up, at least this year with the season that TCU has been having.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just so smooth. They're so smooth. That play at the end of the game was it felt to us like chaos. And it probably felt to Baylor like chaos.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, they just made a really kind of silly decision to let this clock run. But when you watch it back and watch them go out on the field, outside of them running to get on the field, which is what you do all the time, they set that up so quickly and so perfectly.
Yeah.
There wasn't that, like, the third tight end guy wasn't like, oh crap, I got to go out in the field. Like, everybody, the whole kick team, the guys that are on that aren't on the offense, that just like went right out, set up for a field goal.
It was smooth like Kenny G, Paul. I mean, it was like watching a jazz musician.
Yeah,
who
I came away impressed with that. And not just because that they made a kick in a clutch situation, but that no matter what happens to this team, as long as they're within striking distance while there's time on that clock, they're not worried about it.
Yeah.
That's how you win titles. I think the rematch against Kansas State, likely against Kansas State. Now, if Texas beats Baylor and who's the other one? And Kansas State would lose in the Sunflower Showdown to KU, then Texas is in. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but if Kansas State wins, they're in, right?
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, I fully anticipate that to be the case, and I really look forward to that Big 12 title game because Kansas State actually, they're playing a little bit better and more consistent with Will Howard taking the snaps, and they have a bone to pick. There is a revenge game narrative to this one, And I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think TCU ultimately will come out on top and do what we expect them to do. But there's no gimmies in the Big 12 this year. It has been complete and utter chaos. TCU, while they are undefeated, they have done it chaotically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And I expect a rematch in the Big 12 title game to be even more chaos.
Yeah, I think it will be. And on the other side, look, with this Baylor team, they just were who they are. And I mean, they you know, I know that that's a cliche, you know, but that's TCU won the game because in the moments where they had to make a play, they made a play. Baylor was not the winner because in the moments they did not make them.
Yeah. Yeah. It was frustrating to say the least. And you still can't make heads or tails of what Baylor team is going to come out and play week after week. They got Texas next week. And when I was going in to make my prediction, that was probably the one I had the most difficult time trying to make, because if we see them play like they did last week up until 7 seconds left in the game, I think they can have a good chance because they stopped TCU on the ground last week.
Yeah.
TCU found another way to win, which we've talked about. They are good at finding multiple ways to win. But, man, it's going to be tough to actually predict which Baylor team comes out to play Texas this weekend.
It is. So, and we'll get into those games here in the final segment when we preview. In the next segment, Royden's going to be here in about 10 minutes. So we'll get him in the next we'll make this work. We'll make it work. But yeah, Kansas State, West Virginia was kind of a ho-hum game, but Kansas State did what they did. You know, they just, Will Howard started the game. I think that's what they have to do now, right?
I think he
Will
gives them
Howard
the best
has
chance
to be
to
the
win.
guy. I think that if you have Will Howard starting and Adrian Martinez there and you have to switch it back up, you're fine. I think they are among many teams in the country that might have good quarterback situations. They're in a good quarterback situation.
Yes.
They can win either way, but Will Howard has taken a step forward in his career where I think that they can't really stand in his way anymore.
I think he's just getting started.
Yeah. And again, so next year, look for big things from Will Howard at Kansas State in an offense that might change a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and West Virginia, again, moving towards what inevitably will be kind of the end of the Neil Brown era.
Yeah. It's just been it's been disappointing all the way year round for West Virginia. And if you're a West Virginia fan, you just gotta hope that they hire the right guy next and then reset, because there's talent on that team that they should be better than the product that they have put out on the field this year. But all you can hope for is to reset and try again next year.
Yep. Bedlam. Look, Dylan Gabriel in that first quarter was so good.
Yes, he was
so good in that game. And ultimately, they held off. Eric Gray was good, but
yeah, he was great.
Oklahoma was not good after that. That is something that Oklahoma is going to have to reconcile as they move forward is, who are you? Like, they don't really have an identity that stays consistent throughout games. They're an offense that can score in a flurry like that, but then they're also an offense that can somehow just disappear.
Yeah, but the one thing Oklahoma has going for it is that they're still Oklahoma. They're the huge brand. They're going to the SEC. They are going to attract guys that have been there in the past, and they're going to be competitive in the SEC. I think this is just a simple case of everyone expected there to be a hiccup because of all the shuffling in that program and the coaching staff, the roster.
Oh, it wasn't a hiccup. It was.
Oh yeah.
It was a burp. Maybe even a full-on burp.
Yeah, I've got a 7-month-old that spits up all the time, and it was kind of like that, just getting spit up all over yourself. And that's just from the standard of Oklahoma as a program, because Kansas is in this conference that's psyched to be bowl bound with 6 wins. And so it's a little bit a matter of perspective. I think Oklahoma will rebound. Hopefully, for their sake, it won't take as long as it does for most teams to rebound. But at the end of the day, they're still Oklahoma. I think that there are good coaches on this staff, and they will bring in good players.
Yeah. I want to address one thing about the end of that game. So if you were asking me to select an offense to run, and you wanted me to have what I think is the cocaine of offenses,
Yeah.
the Bryles offense that Jeff Lebby runs is that. Like, it is an exciting style of football. But, and we unfortunately did not get to see Baylor take this to teams that were in that CFP, like that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But, so here's the deal. It is a great offense, but it cannot do two things. It cannot travel into any conditions. See rain in West Virginia. It really, because it messes up the timing. The other thing it cannot do, and they lost. You're not going to lose many games of that offense when you're humming and you have the athletes, but you are going to lose some games you don't expect to, and in unexpected ways during that game because of this. It is why they lost to one of the three tenets of why they lost the Cotton Bowl to Michigan State. Baylor did.
Yeah.
In that there were three things that happened in that game. Penalties, which they never cared about. Art Browse never cared about. Special teams, which they didn't really care about.
No.
And the fact that when you have a massive lead in that offense, since you never practice slowing it down.
Yeah, there's not really much of a way to control the clock when you need to.
They don't burn the clock. So while a league can be really big, if you have a lot of time left and maybe you just don't want to give them other opportunities, they can't. They're snapping the ball with 22 seconds on the clock when you're like, no, that's 21 seconds. So that's a minute you can take off the clock every time before you punt the ball back to them.
I mean,
not
to mention, it's a defensive coordinator's worst nightmare, not just for your opponent, but for your own defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Because how can you possibly expect, especially with the way football is changing with practices and everything like that, how do you expect 11 guys and then your reserves, so ideally between, 11 and 25 guys who are going to realistically see time, to be well-conditioned enough to be on the field for as long as that type of a defense has to be on the field with, because that offense wants to get on and off the field as fast as they possibly can.
Yeah, and they want to do that. And look, it's going to work a majority of the time. But Oklahoma fans were just finding this out the other night, and Craig alerted me to some stuff on Twitter, Craig Smoak, some stuff on Twitter about it. And it's just what you're going to have to deal with. You're going to have some games where you're like, holy cow, this offense. And other times you're going to be like, yeah, that was fun in the first 2.5 quarters, but they're kind of within striking distance if you don't keep scoring, and you guys don't seem to be trying to run the clock out a little bit to make it harder on them. So do that. Just do that. And also, any kind of weather that's not 72 and sunny seems to throw it off or better. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk on that offense. Now I do like spread offense concepts. I like more of a merged. Like where I call it the yo-yo effect. Sometimes you can go really fast. And then they're like, what just happened? And then other times you grind them into dust. Just depends on what the situation calls for.
Yeah.
So that's what I like. I don't think the yo-yo offense is going to take off, but if it does, TM, Paul Catalina.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll take a break right here. When we come back, I want to talk about Max Duggan and why he should be a Heisman candidate no matter what happens.
I said it on Saturday, Paul.
Should be a Heisman candidate no matter what happens in the Big 12 title game, or again, unless he, goes 0 for 25 against Iowa State. But I think Max Duggan's a Heisman candidate and maybe in the top 2 or maybe the top 1. We'll talk about it next. This is the Big 1-2 on 365 Sports. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Jacob, I have great news.
What is your great news?
We have a 7:06 arrival time for Royden.
Oh, okay, I figured you were excited.
Yeah, he got tied up with a honeydew list, which, you know what, everyone has those.
What, I mean, for the uninformed, what is a honeydew list? Asking for a friend.
That is what, when your wife says, honey, do this, that's a honeydew list. So
I thought that was just my wife barking orders at me. I mean,
the honeydew list is the nice way of putting it, but, okay, I'm going to tell the story real quick, and maybe this will give him more time to kind of slide in. I know this has nothing to do with anything, but on the topic of honeydew lists, this is so you get to know the host a little bit more. You see and hear. Yeah. It's important. So my future father-in-law, Imad, called yesterday at halftime of the Cowboys game. And he asked me a question. I said, well, Amanda, if she lets me. He's like, what do you mean if she lets you? I'm like, look, she's the boss of the house. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like she's not. And I get that that's going to open me up to some teasing, but I mean, facts are facts, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel, look, you're an active duty Marine right now. You come from a command structure. And so you know how that looks.
Yeah.
And so you didn't get to step out of like when you're, off duty and going home, like you were married that whole time. So you never got to step out of command structure. I had no command structure. I had no rules. There were no rules in my house. Jacob, not one. There was not a rule. What rule in my house?
I could think of a couple, but I doubt that you'd want me to say them on this show.
Yeah, I know. But real rules. Like now we're a shoes off house, which is fine. We're a shoes off house.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's fancy.
Yeah. You
really want to go back to Hawaii, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. But there's all these things. She's a very clean person. And I said, yeah, I'm admitting it because I didn't have there's not a strict set of things going on. Yeah. I realized that, look, the Paul Catalina Corporation was pretty rudderless with me at CEO. I brought in someone who has a rudder.
Yeah.
And so the honeydew list is, these things and these things. And she does a lot. So I don't get to complain, but I do have, there are times where I'm like, well, I kind of want to do this right now, but I realize that it'll be better if I don't and do the thing that she would like me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've offered to cook. I mean, I've been told all my life by everyone who knows anything about women that women like it when they have a guy who cooks. So I cook. I'm a grill guy. I like to, make dinner for my wife. But now we've got a 7-month-old baby, and that little thing controls my entire freaking life, Paul. Yeah. I have offered to cook dinner so many times since that baby was born, which I think is a nice thing to offer. But then I have to come in, and the honeydew list is always, it's a never-ending cycle of, before you do anything, even if it's a nice thing, make sure I don't need help with this little baby.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know for the future. If I have one. Yeah. So I've avoided it to this point in my life rather intentionally. But I do realize that, again, as not being the CEO of Paul Catalina Industries anymore, that I probably don't get a say in that.
No, it's awesome. It's like having this thing that looks exactly like you. Like parts of it will look like Amanda. Those parts will be okay, but the parts that look like you are amazing.
All right, I'll take it, I guess. So anyway, this segment was supposed to be about Max Duggan, the Heisman, and it's going to be about Max Duggan, the Heisman. I don't know why he's fallen by the wayside, other than the fact that nobody thought about him in the beginning of the year. But some of the best Heisman Trophy winners we've had recently, Johnny Manziel, RG3, Jameis Winston, like all those guys weren't Heisman candidates when the year started.
No.
Now look, Caleb Williams was a Heisman candidate when the year started. CJ Stroud was a Heisman candidate when the year started. Blake Corum was a Heisman candidate when the year started. Those guys were all there and expected to be in this mix when the year started. Max Duggan, Hendon Hooker, Drake May, those guys were not.
Yeah.
And Max Duggan is about to take his team to a conference title game. And I mean, so is Drake May, but like they just lost to Georgia Tech, so he's kind of out of this now.
Yeah.
But Max Duggan has done nothing but win and be cool and in command in clutch situations. I don't understand why he's not getting more buzz.
I was saying it on Saturday, Paul. Like he had a certified Heisman moment when he took his team down and got that field goal at the end of the game. That was, if he goes to New York, that will be on the reel that shows when they're announcing the nominees.
Yeah, his big play wasn't even a touchdown pass. It was running out of bounds on second down.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just smart. And look, I'm tired of hearing about CJ Stroud for one thing, because look, he's been good, but all he's really done is win, which it's what you're supposed to do. I don't want to say that winning is a bad thing, but he hasn't really been exciting to watch, in my opinion. I've gone back and watched the Notre Dame game, the Northwestern game, a lot of their other ones, and it's I don't know. I'm not seeing any Heisman moments. I'm not seeing any buzz. He's patting on some stats, but that shouldn't be the only thing that qualifies you to be a Heisman Trophy winner. He doesn't have that moment yet.
Yeah, and part of it is, I think C.J. Stroud's going to be the first pick in the draft because, if I'm at the quarterback factory, I'm probably designing a C.J. Stroud and his skill set and what he can do and what he's proven that he can do with some really good players around him. But the Heisman's about more than just that, right?
Right.
And so I think that Max Duggan very much deserves the hype. Now, Caleb Williams is a generational talent.
Yes, he is.
And he'll be back again next year to do it all over again because he's just a true sophomore. But Max Duggan deserves tons of Heisman hype. He does nothing but go out and do exactly what he needs to do, exactly when he needs to do it. And, his stats are good.
His stats are good, but it's the moments that he has helped his team win in different and miraculous ways. Baylor, Texas Tech, Kansas State, he was the main, if he goes out in any of those games, TCU loses, and we're not even talking about this team right now.
Yeah. Roy Ogletree joins us now, completely on time and not at all late.
Did we have a show today?
Yeah. Roy, I was just telling Jacob that you got caught up in a honeydew list. Pretty much.
Yeah. I just decided to take today off like the Oklahoma State offense.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Or like Baylor on that final possession for against TCU.
Yeah. So let's talk TCU. You missed the recap segment, so you'll have to.
Who needs it?
Darts.
Who needs it?
But Max Duggan, we both believe, should be a legitimate Heisman candidate, and at the very least, sitting in one of those chairs in New York. Given the fact that he's done nothing but win,
right,
and had, key Heisman moments all along the way.
He's had the best stats of any quarterback in the Big 12 this year, that's for sure. I mean, when you are the best or the most important player, rather, maybe not even the best player on that team, but the most important player on a national championship contender, normally that person gets thrown into the mix regardless of how great your season is. And sometimes you transcend that a la, RG3 or what have you. But yeah, I mean, I guess if the conversation has been around CJ Stroud too. Like he fits into that role perfectly. Best player, one of the best teams. but it's been set up to be successful for him this entire time. So do you maybe take a look more at like Drake May or somebody of that ilk?
Yeah.
If CJ Stroud is there for that reason, then you have to have Max Duggan there, I believe, for that reason. Will he be there? Probably not, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think he will be. Will it be up for like the Davey O'Brien Award and stuff? I think he absolutely should be a finalist for stuff like that.
I think he should be there. I don't know if he will. You wonder, but of course the next couple weeks, has a lot to do with that.
If he explodes, like what's he sitting at? Like 30 total touchdowns. Obviously, he's probably, like I said, he's the best Big 12 quarterback, which used to mean something.
Yeah.
I don't know how much anymore, but no, I don't. That is a good question, because what do we do with these people who have been, I don't know, set up to have these huge stats on Ohio State or Clemson or whoever?
So what you're saying is that CJ Stroud is the Winklevoss twins, and and Max Duggan is just Mark Zuckerberg here in a dorm room drinking Code Red Mountain Dew and inventing Facebook. I'm not saying
he's stealing anything. I'm not saying he's going to end democracy or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I do think that this has been such a surprising season for TCU for a number of reasons that we don't know how to react as media or as fans. We're just like, wait, what? What happened? How did we get here? Now we have to award them all these things that we weren't prepared, because, we were set up at the very beginning of the year. Oh, it's going to be, I keep saying Stroud, but it's going to be him. It's going to be
Bryce Young again.
Yeah. For a minute, it was going to be Hendon Hooker was going to run away with it. But now I don't think that's going to happen.
No. And so, I don't know. But, Jake, I mean, there's like part of the problem, though, right? Like, we shouldn't be set up before the year. We got to let things happen.
That's why you play the games.
The Heisman race is the worst about that, too, because immediately they'll be like, Heisman contention after one. Was that his Heisman moment in week one?
Yeah, against UAB. Yeah, sure it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the key national championship defining game against a lower end group of five school. I don't mean that, but UAB there.
Well, in reality, too, we got to start. The Heisman race is fundamentally broken at this point.
It's a quarterback award for
it is a quarterback
almost every year.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Alabama has since sort of rewritten the book on that when a wide receiver won, but it should be the best player on Ohio State is Marvin Harrison Jr., right?
Yeah.
So he should probably be the one that is there.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, the quarterback is the most important position in all of the sports.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that with the receivers that Ohio State has, they would be on the exact same track that they are on if Caleb Williams or Max Duggan or any of these talented quarterbacks that we have been talking about were taking snaps for the Buckeyes. I'm not trying to take away from CJ Stroud, but I'm saying he's got the weapons that these other guys don't quite have.
Yeah, and they've got good ones, but yeah.
Black Friday deals.
Yeah, but I do think that that Max Duggan, and it is, you're right, it's flawed. Will Anderson should have been Alabama's Heisman Trophy. Not to knock Bryce Young, he's a fantastic player who's a friggin' magician most of the time.
He's doing less, or he's doing more with a lot less than any Alabama player has had to do in a long time.
Yeah. But
he makes incredible plays.
But Will Anderson last year should have been, like, if you were to tell me who the candidate was, like if you're going to take one from a school, I would have taken Will Anderson over Bryce Young, no matter how good Bryce Young's season was. Will Anderson was that dominant, but part of it is that you've got a bunch of sports writers who think like, well, a quarterback is more important. I'm going to call this the Ndamukong Suh rule. That a quarterback is more important than any other position, so therefore they deserve the award more. But I can tell you, from watching, especially in the Big 12, Ndamukong Suh's last year at Nebraska,
he was the best player in the country.
He was the best player in the country, and the way that teams had to prepare and deal with him was like nothing you'd ever seen. I will say this, I'm going to go back a long way to an NFL Hall of Famer when he was at Ohio State. The best player in the country, his last year in college, was Orlando Pace at Ohio State.
You're throwing it way back.
Inventor of the pancake block.
Yes. Orlando Pace was that good. But they're not taking Orlando Pace, right? But considering that nobody that tried to get through them, got to where they were going, and that's the best player in the country. 2001 Miami, the most loaded roster in the history of rosters ever. Stat Heisman candidate. Who was it?
Was it one of the running backs?
No, it was Ken Dorsey.
Oh.
Okay, I'm not knocking Ken Dorsey. He was a really good college quarterback, and he's an excellent NFL offensive coordinator. But he was the worst player on that team.
Which is saying something. That's
insane. I'm not saying he's that team was so you're telling me he's going over Ed freaking Reed?
Yeah.
I mean,
you could have nominated one of the 18 running backs that ran for 1,500 yards that year.
Yeah, again, if I was going to rank 1 to 22 of the starters, he was 22nd.
Well, I mean, and then let's extrapolate this out further. So Duggan is obviously the most important player and has been since they made that switch. Is he the same without Quentin Johnston, who has been unbelievable?
Okay, here's why I will tell you. That question was answered on the last drive against Baylor.
Fair.
No Kendry Miller, no Quentin Johnston. Guess what they did? They calmly went down the field without a timeout, mind you, and kicked a field goal while the clock was running.
Yeah, they were letting me run routes and on them. That was insane.
That's how they did that, and that's how TCU does it. Okay, when we come back, our picks for the week. Royden will have to adjust himself, get in the headspace. This is why we locked him in a closet.
They didn't let me leave, and this is why.
We let him leave and see what happens. These kids today. This is the big one, too. Brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack, one of the greatest places on God's green earth. And that's what I will say about it before we come back here on 365 Sports.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to the big one, too, here on 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Royden Ogletree, and Jacob Wilson. Brought to you by Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. If you are coming into Waco for any reason, or if you're a Waco resident, you need to try Shorty's Pizza Shack. It's fantastic. Great, pizza by the slice, gigantic whole pizzas, great beer specials, great Boone's Farm specials. They have that there. If you're into that kind of thing. Or if you're, older than 24, then probably not. But, I've been talked into it a couple times by Shorty and Kyle.
More of a Franzi guy here.
Yeah.
Any Mad Dog 2020?
Yeah. But they also have fantastic wings. You heard in the commercial, Sikkim sauce. It's magical. I believe it has healing powers like, I don't know. What's the, like the fountain in France? Lourdes. We learned about that in Catholic school. Like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess you went to a better Catholic school.
Jacob, trust me, you learned about it. You've probably forgotten since then.
I'm not a well-learned person, as you can probably tell.
But yeah.
Do they have a clock on the wall there? Would I be able to tell what time I'm supposed to be places?
No. It was one of the places that like people had an apparition of Mary. And so people thought that you could go. There was like a stream there that you could go and like.
Oh, I was talking about Shorties.
Oh, Shorties? Oh, no. They do have a clock. I was talking about Lords. But whatever.
Great. This is what you pay to see, folks.
Exactly. But let's get into the preview segment and our picks. We'll go in order. Baylor and Texas Royden. I just don't have a good feeling about this Baylor team right now after the last 2 weeks getting absolutely wood chippered.
Yeah.
And then getting your guts pulled out at the end of that game.
And that's why I picked them.
Really?
Yeah. One last gasp to beat your rival, to get to salvage something on what has been an overall disappointing season. That being said, Texas is the better team, so I don't know if I truly believe in this one going forward. What is this going in? I think it's Texas -6.
What?
It's opening up at Texas -6.
8.5 actually.
8.5. Oh, yeah. Why not? Let's go with Baylor. Let's let them see if they can salvage something here at the very end of the year. The receiving core is, from what I've heard,
Yeah, you can make a little cash on that money line if it hits.
yeah. The receiving core for Baylor is banged up now. Gavin Holmes is banged up from what I've heard and seen on Twitter. But yeah, like why not be the spoilers here? That being said, Texas, I'll humbly tip my cap. You're the better team this year.
Yeah. Jacob, I think you and I are in agreement here. I can see Baylor winning this game easily. I mean, like, it's not something I have to stretch my mind. I just don't feel good about where they are.
Yeah, I that's why I said earlier that this was the hardest one for me to pick, because ultimately I think for Baylor to win, they're going to have to control the game and dominate it the entire time. I don't see them getting up and then, letting them hang around like they've been doing all this time. I think they're going to have to control the game, dominate it, keep Bijan Robinson at check. Quinn Ewers, he's got to have an off night. I don't see all of those things happening. And so that's why I'm picking Texas.
All right, West Virginia at Oklahoma State. That one is the 11 o'clock kick on Saturday. I've got Oklahoma State in this one. They've got a lot of injuries and all that, but West Virginia, the only thing I think they would have going for them in this one is that this will be Neil Brown's probably last game there, and there might be a win-one for the Gipper.
Do they even want to win one for the Gipper at this point?
At that point, I don't know. Like, it's always surprising, but I don't. I just think I got the Pokes here in this one.
Yeah, I got Oklahoma State. Does Neil Brown even get to get off the field before he is promptly released?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure it's going to be a Sunday morning press release there. So
yeah, very early morning news dump in the middle of the World Cup.
We have Americans don't really care about that as much as we pretend to.
I cared about it today, man.
Yeah, it's
one all in.
It's a very Jeff Winger thing. We're trendy Americans. We pretend to care about soccer all the time.
My patriotism comes out when we're competing in international competition. I don't care what it's.
All across the board, we pick Oklahoma State. Iowa State at TCU. I think this one's we're all across the board here.
Yeah.
TCU is the best team in the conference. They're going to go into the conference title game 12-0. Iowa State's offense is bad. Jacob, I don't think this needs much more sauce on it than that, does it?
No, and frankly, I was hoping that somebody would pick Iowa State just so that we could hear that explanation, but there's absolutely no justification to take Iowa State.
This is the type of game that, like, I could see that because Iowa State's defense is so good, that it's just mind-boggling. One of those mind-boggling ones at the very end of the season where all hopes and dreams are crushed.
Yeah,
but that offense is atrocious, man. I'm sorry, Iowa State fans. It's just not good.
It feels like the state of Iowa legislature passed no school shall score more than 17 points per game in any college football contest.
Yeah, they signed it. Fine, whatever, sure.
Yeah, it just went through. Oklahoma at Texas Tech. This game was dangerously close to being for winner goes or loser goes home, winner gets bowl eligibility. Mm-hmm. It's not. This is winner goes to
Texas Bowl,
slightly better bowl than loser goes to, but that's where it is right now. So I'm picking Oklahoma in this one. even though it is in Lubbock.
Hey, Jacob, look at that.
Yeah, I went with you this time, Roy.
Just not nuts about that Texas Tech defense. Not nuts about the Oklahoma defense either, but I'm going Oklahoma in this one. I'm leaning Dylan Gabriel over Tyler Shuck, and that's pretty much why.
They figured it. I mean, they put it all together. Granted against a Oklahoma State team,
And only in one quarter too. So.
Yeah, that is kind of reeling right now on offense. But last game of the season at Jones AT&T, they're going to get up for this one. They have to, right?
Yeah, like across the board, stats-wise, these two teams, we didn't expect it at the beginning of the season. They are so freaking similar. 32 points per game for Tech, 31.5 for Oklahoma, 27.8 points allowed for Tech, 27.6 allowed for Oklahoma per game. It's remarkable how close they are in just about every metric, even though Oklahoma has that flashier quarterback right now, but it's in Lubbock. This team is really fired up right now. I'm going with Texas Tech.
All right. I mean, you guys are both going to be wrong, but that's fine. You're wrong a lot.
Hey, look, we don't do this show because we like being right.
Yeah.
We do this show because we like hearing ourselves talk.
It's a great point. The Sunflower Showdown. I think that's what this is one called.
What?
The Kansas State Sunflower, because of the Sunflower State.
I know it's the Sunflower State, but
It's Sunflower Showdown.
if I'm a fan of either of these teams, I'm looking for a cooler
Can we
name.
get a better name for this one?
Yeah, I would hope so, but
People in the comments, tell us what you think that the name for this rivalry should be if we're wrong here about the
I think
Sunflower.
it is the Sunflower Showdown. But
I think there's a sponsorship deal that I will broker with either David or Big Sunflower Seeds, and it seems like low-hanging fruit that we're not hearing about.
yeah, Kansas at Kansas State. If this game was in Lawrence, I'd be more apt to pick Kansas. I just think with their run defense, which got shredded last week, I think it's probably going to get shredded again this week with a great running offense that Kansas State has. So I am picking the Wildcats.
Yeah, I'm going with the Wildcats too. They'll play great. They'll get into the Big 12 championship game. I kind of actually expect them to run away with this one. Kansas has not been great since they became bowl eligible, which all things considered, this was, and you're going to say no, duh, but this was the best possible scenario for this Kansas team this year. They played out of their mind. We hoped that maybe they could get to like 8 wins. If Jalen Daniels doesn't go down initially, maybe they do. But nobody came into this year thinking that they were going to be pushing for 7-8 wins. Nobody thought. And now that they're bowl eligible, Jalen Daniels is back. Maybe they sneak in the winning bowl game. But this one, that defense hasn't been good for a few weeks in a row. And Jalen Daniels, they looked hesitant to even like run the football with him this past week. Like they almost wanted to put him in bubble wrap and just keep him safe against Texas.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, they kind of pulled the plug on that anyway.
I think Kansas State, they've been riding higher and higher week after week. And Kansas, while they're bowl eligible and everyone in Lawrence is really psyched about that, they've just kind of been flatlined a little bit. Not dead, but, they've just kind of been plateauing a little bit. And you can't do that against a team riding this high.
They've gone as far as that the talent that they have on this team was going to take them, I think. I think they've really maximized what they have in Lawrence right now. And can that lead to them getting better and better and better talent? You would hope so, and I think that it will. But right now, with Jalen Daniels in the state that he was in, they really pushed the limit on what this season was going to be.
Yeah, and if he doesn't get hurt, I'd probably throw another dub on the board for them.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line because of the way he plays. And look, he came and played against Texas last week, but
if he doesn't get hurt, they may be in a better game with Baylor than what it ended up being.
Yeah, exactly. So that's and that game got really close when it shouldn't have.
Bold prediction right now: Kansas wins whatever bowl game they go to. I'm just going to say.
Hey, we love that here.
Yeah, well, and it'll mean more to them than maybe any other team that they play.
Yeah, they're gonna want to be there no matter what. Like Idaho Potato Bowl, they're gonna want to be there.
Yeah, it's such a big deal to them. All right, that's gonna do it for the big 1-2.
Wait, we got Tulane.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that. Thank you. I should have been Tulane and Cincinnati. This is our incoming game this week. These are two really good teams. UCF lost to Navy last week, so they've kind of taken themselves out of that group of 5 in the New Year's Six.
Which they were controlling their own destiny in that because they had the head-to-head with Cincinnati.
Yeah, but I think Tulane's played a little bit more consistently than Cincinnati has this year, and I am picking the green wave in this one.
I'm going to go with Tulane, too. That offense is incredible. Pratt doesn't turn the ball over. He has 20 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year. Spears, I believe, is their running back, like 900 yards, 15 touchdowns or something like that. That offense is clicking. But the thing that I really had to go back and look at Cincinnati's box scores, they've won like 5 or 6 3-point games.
Yeah.
They've been able to eke it out. So maybe that turns for them there, but I think Tulane this is the best they've been in decades.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because they're actually 2-point dogs. Mm-hmm. I'm going with Tulane because like they're fun. Like no one thought about them at the beginning of this season, and they've been fun. Like they've been playing like a team that is in a conference where there's a bunch of teams that are going to go to the Big 12, and they're playing like they said, hey, screw these guys. We should be going to the Big 12 instead of them. Obviously not going to happen, but that's kind of the attitude that they seem to have this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tulane, I think when people approach them about like, are you interested in this there or the school? Or like, not right now.
Not really. And they've been they've been dominant in baseball for years too. So it's just like they kind of just do their own thing.
They have a lot. They know they'd have a lot to improve to get to that point,
right, facility
wise. And so they're like, look, we appreciate you thinking because we're New Orleans and we used to be in the SEC that we'd be interested in that, but they're
Did we talk about Lane Kiffin probably taking the Auburn job? Did y'all see that?
Yeah, I saw that. John Sokoloff. Why do we know him? Was he here?
I have no idea. He just popped up on my feed.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've met him. But anyway, he covers Mississippi, Ole Miss, Mississippi State there, and he's reporting that Lane Kiffin is, even though they haven't officially offered the job, that Lane Kiffin's taken it.
Auburn's doing the thing where we haven't offered the job to anyone yet.
I think they probably offered the job to about 20 people, and they're waiting for the first person to call back and go, yeah, I'll do it.
I got it. Me.
Yeah. I don't care about the crazy town that is here on the plains and that,
I mean, Paul, if you fire off 14 text messages at 2 a.m, at least somebody is probably going to respond, right?
Right.
Law of averages.
It's all about volume. It's all about volume. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Big 1-2. Paul Catalina, Roy Nogaltree, Jacob Wilson. Thanks to Shorty's Pizza Shack. Have a great week. We're back again on Monday. Lots to talk about going into championship week.
I'll be here on time.